August 24th, 79. CE, the Bay of Naples. Early afternoon. The air tastes like stone. Ash is falling like snow, but it is hot. Too hot. Somewhere in the darkness, the ground will not stop shaking, and the mountain will not stop roaring. This is not a storm. This is Vesuvius. And the next few hours will decide who disappears and who makes it out alive. What you are about to hear is based on historical records, archaeological evidence, and one of the most important eyewitness accounts ever written. This episode discusses a natural disaster and significant loss of life. Viewer discretion is advised. But before the ash, before the fire, before the sky turned black, Pompeii was just a city having lunch. The streets are doing what they always do, moving. Merchants shout over each other in the forum. Bread bakes in stone ovens. Bathhouses steam. Somewhere near the harbor, fishermen argue over the morning catch. 20,000 people live here, give or take. It's a mid-tier Roman city, not the capital, not the frontier, just a comfortable stop along the Bay of Naples where the wine is good and the soil is rich. And that soil, it's rich for a reason. Because looming over all of it, just 5 miles to the northwest, sits a mountain. Green slopes, vineyards running up its flanks. The people of Pompeii don't have a word for volcano. To them, Vesuvius is just the mountain, a landmark, a backdrop. It hasn't erupted in nearly 2,000 years. No one alive has ever seen it do anything. That changes today. The signs were there, if anyone had been looking. 17 years earlier, a devastating earthquake rattled the entire region. Buildings cracked, temples fell. Pompeii spent years rebuilding. Some structures were still under repair when the eruption happened. And in the weeks before August 24th, smaller tremors came and went. Springs dried up, wells behaved strangely. The kind of things that today would trigger an evacuation. But in 79 CE, there was no framework for what a volcano could do. No evacuation plan, no warning system. The shaking was just something the ground did sometimes. So the people of Pompeii did what humans always do when danger whispers instead of screams. They adjusted. They ignored it. They went back to lunch. And then, around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Vesuvius opens. Not with a slow leak, not with a trickle of lava. The mountain detonates. A column of superheated gas, pumice, and rock launches straight into the atmosphere, climbing 10, 15, eventually over 20 miles high. It punches through the sky like a fist. Within minutes, pumice stones begin raining on Pompeii, small at first, pebble-sized, then larger. Rooftops start collecting debris like a freak hailstorm that will not stop. Some people leave immediately. They grab what they can and head for the gates. But many stay. The pumice is light. The building seems sturdy. It feels survivable. And here is the thing. For the first several hours, it was survivable. The pumice fall was dangerous, but not instantly lethal. People could still move, still breathe, still choose. Some people chose to wait, because the worst part of this eruption has not arrived yet. By late afternoon, the ash column had blotted out the sun. Not dimmed it, erased it. Pliny the Younger, watching from across the bay at Misenum, would later describe a darkness not like a moonless night, but like a sealed room with the lamp put out. The ash was no longer falling gently. It was accumulating fast. Roofs that had held for hours began to groan, then buckle, then collapse inward, trapping whoever was still inside. The weight of the debris was now measured in feet, not inches. Breathing became a negotiation. Every inhale pulled in fine volcanic ash, glass-sharp particles that shredded the lining of the lungs. People tied cloths and pillows over their faces. It helped, barely. The streets were nearly impassable. Pumice was waist-deep in some places. Doorways were blocked. The people who had stayed behind to protect their homes were now trapped by them. Across the bay, Pliny the Elder, the famed Roman admiral and naturalist, ordered his fleet toward the danger. He had received a message from a friend near the volcano, begging for rescue. He sailed straight into the eruption zone. He will not return. But the pumice fall, as deadly as it is still only the first act. What comes next is what actually buries Pompeii. Sometime after midnight, the eruption column collapses. When the plume can no longer sustain itself, the material that had been climbing miles into the sky suddenly drops. Instead of falling straight down, it rolls outward, a superheated avalanche of gas, ash, and rock traveling at over 100 miles per hour. This is a pyroclastic surge. The air inside it exceeds 500 degrees. It moves faster than anyone can run. It does not stop for walls. It does not stop for doors. It does not stop. The first surge hits Herculaneum, the smaller city closer to the volcano. It reaches the town in minutes. Anyone still there dies almost instantly. Pompeii is farther away. It buys the city a few more hours. But through the early morning, surge after surge rolls down the mountain. Each one reaches a little farther, and then, just before dawn, the final surge arrives. It sweeps across the city. And then there is silence. When it's over, Pompeii is gone. Not destroyed in the way a fire destroys, scattered, charred, visible. Gone in the way only volcanic ash can manage. Sealed, packed beneath 20 feet of material. The rooftops, the streets, the fountains, the bodies, all locked in place. The Roman Empire sends relief. Survivors relocate. The Emperor Titus tours the disaster zone. But there is nothing to rebuild. The city is not damaged. It is entombed. And over the following decades and centuries, Pompeii fades. The name drifts out of conversation. The ground settles. Grass grows. Farmers return to the slopes above the buried city without knowing what is underneath. Pompeii disappears from memory for nearly 1,700 years. Rediscovery begins in the 1740s when organized excavations start to peel back the layers. And what they find stuns the world. Not ruins, a city, frozen, intact. Bread still in ovens, graffiti still on walls. Bodies still in their final positions, curled, reaching, holding each other. The plaster casts, created by archaeologist Giuseppe Fiorelli in the 1860s, pouring liquid plaster into the voids left by decomposed remains, produce some of the most haunting images in the history of archaeology. Pompeii becomes the most important archaeological site in the Western world. It rewrites what we know about Roman daily life, architecture, diet, politics, and art. It gives us the word Plinian, the term volcanologists still use for the most explosive type of eruption. The letters of Pliny the Younger, written to the historian Tacitus, become the first detailed eyewitness account of a major volcanic eruption in recorded history. But perhaps the most important thing Pompeii teaches us is this. Vesuvius is still there. It is classified as one of the most dangerous volcanoes on Earth. Over 3 million people now live in the metropolitan area surrounding it. The Italian government maintains an evacuation plan, but it depends on days of warning. Vesuvius does not always give days. Pompeii is not just an ancient tragedy. It is a warning that has not expired. Pompeii was not destroyed by a single moment. It was a chain of moments, each one narrowing the choices. The ones who left early survived. The ones who waited became the evidence. Vesuvius remains, sleeping, watching the coastline fill with millions of lives again. If you want more true stories from history's darkest hours, subscribe and tell me which tragedy to cover next.